Welcome back. We're looking at America's moral authority as a key player in global affairs. From our studios in London, I'm joined by Dr. Robin Niblett, Director of Chatham House, and here in Washington, D.C. is Ben Wattenberg, a Senior Fellow at the American Enterprise Institute, a conservative think tank, and author of Fighting Words, a tale of how liberals created neoconservatism. And actually, Ben, if I could get to you on this topic that Mohammed Osman raised before the break, was, is America imposing or promoting democracy? Because a lot of people see it as being imposed.
Well, that is what a lot of people say. I don't see it. I mean, in Iraq, you have an elected government, a Supreme Court, a parliament, and now they're beginning to say, well, maybe we want a timeline, and the president is saying, if you want us out, you're out.
But it's difficult because in many cases
the only places that I can think of where we imposed it was when we beat Germany in World War II, and we beat Japan, and we said, you're going to do it our way because you people have almost destroyed the world. And you know, the line that we've used is we don't want empire. The last thing we conquered was the Philippines, and that was a bad idea. The only thing we're asking, we think we have not an empire of ideas, but some ideas that people want to emulate. And in the few wars we've been involved in, you know, there are about 50 wars going on at any one time in the world. Since World War II, we've been involved in 4. And you know, the line is, we say, the only thing we're asking is some space to bury our dead who fought for your freedom. And we have not imposed values. We have promoted them. And Freedom House, which was formed by Eleanor Roosevelt, sort of the high priestess of liberalism, measures these things. The percentage of people living under democratic governance in the last 30 years has gone from 10% to 65%. And I think this is going to be one of the great legacies of the free world, but particularly of America.
The thing is, there can be subtle pressures, there can be economic pressures, there can be all kinds of ways to coerce and cajole and even bully a country into taking a certain path. So even if it's not imposed as in a direct order, there's still ways that America's influencing.
Tell me the people in the world who do not want a say in their own. I mean, I think when they had the election in Iraq and you saw 9 million people, a much better turnout than we get, and you saw women waving that purple finger in the air.
On Al Jazeera, as you mentioned.
On Al Jazeera, exactly right. Yeah. That was a monumental shift, and I defy you or any of our viewers to tell me who did not want to say in their own governance. It's a basic human desire, and it's been a remarkable story.
Let me get to Dr. Robin Niblett in here with an email that we got from Australia. This came from S. Anoma in Sydney. Dr. Niblett, if I could put this to you, it says, America has conducted wars on foreign soil, carried out covert activities against governments it doesn't approve of, and even assassinated heads of state, all in the name of democracy and freedom. Now America faces the repercussions of all these actions, and the people in America and all over the world will embrace anyone who can bring any real change in foreign policy. And I wonder to what degree this, there's an optimism now that the change in the White House also might change America's image. And I guess a lot of hopes are being pinned on certain candidates, and particularly Barack Obama, judging by some of the surveys.
Well, there's no doubt that Barack Obama, I think for many Europeans certainly, appears to represent a positive change to American foreign policy, to that which it has experienced in the last 8 years. They may be pinning, I think, in Europe too much hope on that change, but nonetheless, I think it's certainly the crowds that are out there in Berlin on the weekend certainly demonstrate the kind of desire for change. Ultimately, I think what Europeans at least are looking for, and I don't want to generalize across the whole world, it's hard enough to generalize just about Europeans, I think they're looking for a sense of an America that appreciates its interdependence. The extent of the interdependence of its security with other people's security, whether this be in the realm of climate change, whether it be in the nature of proliferation, whether it be in the way that ultimately America is a country that has the capacity to influence other countries, but also can be influenced by them. That sense of that we're in the boat together is, I think, very much what they're looking for in American leadership. I happen to believe that Senator McCain could bring a similar sense of the same perspective. He's a leader who has a long tradition, certainly from a transatlantic perspective, a European perspective, of being very close and thinking closely and working closely with European allies. So I don't think one needs to pin all one's hopes on one candidate or another, but there is a look for a change from a leadership that defines America's national interest first and sees it somehow as something that can be contained and then promoted around the rest of the world, to a leadership or a group of individuals who see it in a much more collective way as interdependence that then America can try to influence.
Robin, that's not going to happen. The Americans, like every other, we still live in a world of sovereign nation states. Everybody wants to cooperate, but their own interests are going to come first. Americans, the UN is not particularly popular in the United States. And when you say that, well, the United States is losing in the court of world public opinion, or we are denounced in the United Nations, I think most Americans say good, because we have our own views and values, which we think are good. People are free to emulate them if they want, or not if they don't want. We're a very important player. I mean, as you said, the sole superpower, and Europeans don't vote in American elections. And in my judgment, the more Senator Obama, who I happen to admire, goes around saying I'm a citizen of the world, the poorer he's going to do in an American election. And McCain is also, I got to know John McCain pretty well. He's also a very complex character. I mean,
I'm going to get a call on from Iran on the line. Behruz, thanks for being with us. Go ahead with your question, please.
Yeah. My question is, maybe the United States, they're promoting democracy, but actually they are imposing imperialism in the world.
Now we had this issue come up, the imposing and promoting thing, but perhaps I could put it in the form with an email that came in from Qatar here for Dr. Niblet. This actually was interesting because the viewer wrote in the bulk of the email about overhearing a young girl who was living in the Middle East, asked if she was American, and she said no, she was Australian, and she had been told by her parents to deny that she was American, though she was. And Shadab Ahmed Khan, who was in Doha, who wrote this email, wrote in saying, my suggestion to the next president would be to make Americans safe all over the world rather than making them safe in their homeland. Safety for Americans can only be guaranteed if they are loved by every other nation. And I wonder to that extent, we've reached that position where, I mean, some of the issues you pointed out, so that America needs to be more inclusive.
Yeah, but I mean, although I disagree with some of the comments Ben's made, there's no doubt that there's no country that can run its foreign policy by trying to be loved by the rest of the world. It's a recipe for a non-democratic solution. Ultimately, American voters are going to vote for a president or leaders who can protect their interests to the greatest extent possible. I just happen to believe that a lot of America's interests could be much better protected by a more inclusive approach to foreign policy than has been demonstrated by the Bush administration
but suppose
over the last 8 years. I think ultimately.
Yeah, but suppose take that issue of global warming. Now, the Kyoto Treaty did not include India. It did not include China. It had, in my judgment, some very, very flawed science. America didn't sign. The Senate rejected it by 99-1 because, among other things, they felt that if we signed it, we would live up to it. Every other country that has signed it has broken the terms of it. So, and I think, and I used to be quite an admirer of Senator Gore's, I think the evidence, it is not settled science. It is not. We've had 8 straight years with no increase in climate. The Arctic ice shelf is melting. The Antarctic ice shelf is increasing. The number of polar bears is growing. I mean, it's a whole.
I think it's a symbolic thing as well, though, that America often will quote international resolutions and so on, and then use them as an excuse to blame a country for not being compliant, and then allow other countries to break them, and also not sign on to other issues.
Well, because we don't believe in global government. We have seen some of the most outrageous things come out of the UN. The one that comes to my mind, I grew up in the Bronx. I'm Jewish. I come from a Zionist household. When the General Assembly of the United States said Zionism is racism, right, not only Jews, but most Americans said that is an outrage, and I don't want to be governed by people who say that.
I've got to unfortunately stop you there and thank Dr. Niblet as well for joining us because we're out of time. Ben, thank you.
Thank you very much.
On the next show, women and girls were forced into combat in Liberia's 14-year civil war, often growing up knowing nothing else. How can they be integrated now? We'll find out as we talk with former soldiers. Join us for that. I'll see you next time.